Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Retro. Today we're going to be talking to Rob Watson, who's the creative director of Raw, which is an ad agency, creative agency based out of the UK. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got started. I'll be honest, I did a little research, and what I'm seeing is some great stuff, but also it appears as though you've got a very purpose-driven brand.
Yeah, thank you for that. How it started for me, so the design company, we've been going for 15 years now. I've been, fortunate to work on over 1,000 design projects in that time for for some of the biggest brands in the UK and for practically every target audience there is. But it kind of wound it back. I was at art college, did design and art and design basically at college, went to uni, studied graphics, then went out in the industry for a couple of years and then just thought, what the hell, give it a go. Let's see if we can do our own thing, set it up. It was challenging at times because I was leaving behind a position which was, I had a regular income. It was going places, but there was just something inside of me that thought, I want to give it a go. And I have this quote often, which is someone says, I didn't hear it at the time, but it helps me now. And I think it's like 20 years from now, you'll regret the things that you didn't do, not the things that you did do. So I'm really grateful that 15 years ago, we made the choice to set up on our own and never really looked back, really. It's been so challenging at times, for sure. But to feel like you're the one in control of your own destiny, and to be able to take the direction if you want. And in terms of you saying us about us being pretty purposeful, driven in the way we are, it took us a few years to understand who we were as an agency and who we wanted to pitch ourselves at. To start off with, we kind of went for any project that was available, just anything that would get us in to build the portfolio up. But after a while, as we understand who we are as people and also who we want the agency to be, we started to focus more on wanting to work with, our motto for a company is do good work for nice people. So, I always believe in great design as an opportunity to have a real impact on people and place and to inspire change. I'd much rather be spending my time doing that, and I'll sleep a lot better at night knowing that I'm contributing in some way, rather than me feeling like I'm just selling a product or something. I'm happy to sell products, but I'd like them products for me to also either use them myself or believe in them, rather than just feel as though I was doing it just to pay the bills or for wherever. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and that's a little bit of a snapshot on us.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of lead you down a road here, but one of the things that's tough about what we do, right, is sometimes you got to just take the work on, because you got to get some portfolio pieces going, you got to get some cash flow going, and you have to have work, right? So when you set out to do a purpose-driven brand, good work for nice people, that is a self-inflicted challenge sometimes. So like, I have a very similar process in that I want to work with certain brands that I want to work with, and I want to work with good people, and I want to have fun while I'm doing it. But I will say is, as I've grown my company, sometimes that's a hurdle, because the industry and the traditional way of doing things is not necessarily about purpose all the time. Can you talk to me a little bit about, I applaud you for that, but can you talk to me a little bit about, kind of the challenges that come with holding to your guns on some of that stuff?
Yeah, well, some of the challenges were, because at one point we got up to I had 10 staff working for us, and we had these fancy studios in Manchester, and we'd grown to a decent size, but we were working with some big clients in the UK. Unfortunately, a lot of those projects were kind of socially responsible projects. Even though we'd work with, say, people on your podcast might recognise the brand like the Premier League with it's football here, but it's soccer probably to most of your fans. They would, even though they're selling football, we were able to do some purpose-driven stuff in there. However, the challenges were that at one point we were a team of 10, but we even spoke about, what can we talk about growth? And we even thought about, should we grow the company to 25 staff? Look at selling the company. These were all the conversations that we were having. But this is when the company was about 5-6 years old. And I've changed a lot as a person, and I've grown as a lot of person. And to be honest, for us to be able to stick to our guns and be really purpose driven, we had to change our model of our business. We couldn't continue to grow to a team of 25 and just be working on stuff that, floated our boat, or felt like it was got us really excited about. For us to be able to do that, in a way now, we're a much smaller agency. Like you can see where I am now, I'm in our loft space. 5-6 years ago, we made the decision to no longer have a studio, no longer have permanent staff. So we actually took the real challenging position of letting go of our team and letting go of the studio. So me and my wife worked together. And that's enabled us to work on a project by project basis with a team of freelancers, wherever they are in the world. And we still work with some of our own team members. But that meant that we could really reduce our overheads. And I realized, like, I was doing it for 9 or 10 years. And I'd pretty much ticked a lot of the things that I wanted to do. Like I'd built a team. We had this nice studio. I worked with some great clients. We won lots of awards. We were getting our names in the paper. We were getting recognition. So I achieved everything I set out to do. And I also realized, what is it that really makes me fulfilled in life? What's making me happy? And in a way, it wasn't that drive for success. And I realized that drive for success was an illusion, and I was never going to be happy. Success was never going to make me happy. But what makes me happy now is, as soon as we made the shift from working, I eliminated my commute to work. So I saved 40 hours a month in time. I would now only work around 2 to 3 days a week. We've recently just had a daughter. It means that I can be there for her for a couple of days a week while my wife's working. Like that for me, like that's a real purpose for me. And the thing is, the challenge is, in some ways, for my ego, I've had to let go of what I'm perceived to look like from the outside world. Like I used to have fancy car, fancy holidays, all those things. And like I said, getting our names in the paper, winning all these awards and stuff. And I perceived to be this successful man. Where now what I do, it feels for me personally, feels more successful to be able to be there for my daughter as she's growing up, to be able to work flexibly, to work how I choose to work. So yeah, it's challenging to be purpose driven, but we had to basically completely transform the way we ran the business and who we approached. So we'll work with charities now and small businesses and still large businesses, but it means that we don't have to go chasing after bigger clients all the time just to pay the bills, because it's challenging. It's challenging. And sometimes some things might come our way, which will be a good opportunity, and we'll go, okay, we'll still do that. It's not like we are 100% everything has to tick every box. But if it ticks a few boxes and they're nice people to work with and we're going to do something creative, then all good.
Yeah. So what you're breaking down here and what we're talking about is so very similar to how, to how we've grown Cyber Dogs and our podcast and stuff. And I think one of the things you mentioned that's a good point to just revisit is, I think as you get started in this industry, I think, we might want some of these things internally, but I think we're kind of led to believe that we want the big clients and we want the big team and the big office and all these things. And once you manufacture those, you make those dreams a reality, so to speak, you start to realize, well, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. And it's taking me away from the creative stuff that I like to do, because now I'm leading people and I'm dealing with those issues and I'm having to deal with the back end business side of it. And you start to kind of unwrap this idea that that's what you wanted and break it down to its core of, well, what do I really want? So to downsize, to kind of change that reality for yourself, I applaud you for that. But I would say the power behind that as well, which I found in my own world, is that now I'm nimble enough where I can make those choices. I can work with who I want to work with. I can pursue those purpose-driven projects. And sometimes I can just do projects for the sake of fun. But now I have the freedom to do it where, like you said, you manufacture and you create this massive machine. You got to feed the machine. And sometimes your ability to be nimble in the choices you want to make, you can't make them because you just have to keep that machine fed.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think for me is I felt as though, I think it's like most things in life, you have to maybe experience it to go through it, to go on that journey, to realize that isn't what makes you happy. But because we're sold from such a young age what the idea of success looks like, and it's just basically more. It's more and more and more. I remember watching something, I think it was Henry Ford from the Ford industry. He was one of the first billionaires. And he got interviewed after it, and someone said to him, "So what next?" And he just said, "More." So for me, if he's one of the first billionaires and he just wants more and more, what hope does it give for us if you get to that level? And you see that, I don't know how many of your listeners will be aware of, say, Russell Brand here in the UK. He's kind of experienced all sorts of fame, and he's kind of had an awakening to stuff and to realize, well, what is the true happiness? What is it that's really fulfilling in life? And it's a journey, but I think a lot of us have to maybe experience some of that to realize that's not what we need. Like, for instance, when I was younger, I had a sports car with a soft top, and I always wanted one of them, and I had to get it and enjoy it to experience it, and then I can let it go and go, oh, I don't need to do that again. It's fine. But I think sometimes you have to go through it. But what I'd like to do sometimes when I speak to students now or designers and stuff is to maybe, if I, through my own experience, can encourage them to do, to not necessarily have to go on that journey themselves, and to find that fulfillment early on in an easier way, because they've got someone like me or many others speaking up saying, actually, you don't have to go down that path to success. You can stay small agency, as you said, you can stay nimble, you can stay flexible. Like, for instance, me, I love now, like, my laptop is my office. That's it. I don't need, we had this 3-story office space. Beautiful it was, but it was expensive and it was fixed in one location. We've been fortunate when we made the changes. We were in Mexico working, we were in California working. We could take our laptop, our office, anywhere with us, because 90% of our communications is all done online anyway. There's very little are we picking up the phone. And even now from COVID, face-to-face meetings have almost been evaporated, and everything's done on Zoom or other things. So I think the world's changed a lot for us in the last 15 years. I used to sit at a desk with a big desktop machine with a big massive screen. There was, that was the only way I was going. And now this tiny little laptop and freedom, I think that's the thing that a lot of us are seeking, an element of freedom. And it's something that I'm moving towards a lot more, but, will I achieve that? I don't know. We'll see.
No, I think our paths, our journeys are very similar. And I will add one thing to the equation, is that I think with COVID and the way things became forced to be more virtual than ever before, I think that awakening, that understanding, that realization that, like, I don't have to be tethered to a 3-story office building, a cubicle, or whatever it is. I think that awakening, or that realization, was real for a lot of people. Me personally, very similar to you. Prior to COVID, I had clients that wouldn't meet virtually. They wanted that coffee, that face-to-face. And I didn't mind doing it. It was what it was, but it was something I had to navigate. It was hours on the road. It was time spent in a coffee shop, or whatever the case may be. And when forced to go virtual, like, now that sense of freedom, I have clients that just go to the lake, and they call me from the lake, and they don't even come back to town. And I think that's great. I think they're actually better clients now, because even they're having more fun, more freedom. And I think the idea of that, especially in the world we're in, where it is so virtual, we can transfer files and emails and do all these things from just about anywhere. I think that not only is a huge benefit for us and anybody that experiences that, but for us specifically, I think it then feeds the creativity, because we're more free mentally. We're more free to create, and we're more free to brainstorm, versus feeling taxed by the overhead, the next meeting, or whatever that case may be. Because to your point on like the office space, I had a couple different offices, kind of a pilot office and then a workable office prior to COVID. And I didn't question it. It was something that you do, right? Because you needed the storefront, you needed the space. And when COVID hit and all of a sudden nobody's meeting anymore and I don't need the office space, why don't I get rid of it? Now I've lived this existence without it for so long that it doesn't even make sense as to why I would ever do it again. So I think the realizations that come with not only experience, but with what's happened in the last, 18 months, I think it's really allowed us to probably be better entrepreneurs, better businessmen, but to be more creative.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's given people the permission to make those changes faster. where in the past maybe a lot of us would just go along with stuff. That's because that's the way it was. So yeah, I think definitely more opportunities to be more creative. I think it'd be challenges as well. I must admit, we made the shift 5-6 years ago to just work remotely. And there is still an element of sometimes I miss the team dynamic, miss being together, miss that family atmosphere, that feeling and stuff like that. But that kind of, the other challenges that we had with managing staff, overheads, as you said, it ends up, for me, felt like I became office dad. And to just make that shift and be to me, actually, I now do what I actually trained to do. I'm a designer again. And for many years, I was a manager. I was giving our designers the best briefs to work on. And I'm thinking, I want to be working on them, but it doesn't make sense for me to do them and them not to be doing them. So it's kind of full circle. And I must admit, we're in a fortunate industry where, because we're creative and because we're designers, we want to do them things. Where in other industries, you may not want to be, the dog's body or the one that, on the, working through stuff. But unfortunately, we're to be in a creative industry, to be able to do the work. I love doing the physical work. I love getting a piece of print back. I love seeing something live, something I feel like I've put my energy into it. So yeah, it's been a real opportunity. And I noticed, a lot of people are having, even whether it's creative industries or just people in general, the last couple of years are having a really deep dive into reflecting on their own life and their own work. So many people are going back to university or college to retrain, whether that's because they've lost a job or because they just look around and say, you know what, it's not for me. I think there's a statistic, something like 70% of people really don't like the job. And about 35% of people despise the job, and it's sad, isn't it, to think that people might spend 40 years of their life doing something that they really do not enjoy. And I just feel like sometimes how grateful I am, especially now, I can do something that I really enjoy. Like this morning, I worked for a few hours and then I went and took my daughter to this play area and we were playing and in this soft play for a few hours. And I feel like this is amazing. It's Thursday afternoon and I'm out with my daughter and then I can come back and do a bit more work and join in and do this with you. It's really nice to be flexible and fluid. And yeah, it's challenging at times because I think we've been so conditioned to be busy and to work and to feel as though we have to be, it's like a badge of honor to be busy. And it's like everyone says, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'm really busy. But is that a good thing? I don't want to be busy. I want to be productive. And if I can be smart and clear with the way I work, and if I can do 3 hours worth of work in a day, and that's enough, and I've been really focused, why stretch that out over a full day? I think a lot of people in a 9 to 5 will stretch out their work because, that's the hours to do it. But when you work for yourself, you think, if I can be smart, be productive, I'm sure you've heard of Tim Ferriss with the 4-hour work week. I adopted a lot of those things a few years ago. I was like, God, I'm wasting so much time. Just to feel like you're there in the office to give a presence as if you're doing something. And sometimes, you just stretch stuff out. I remember sometimes when the staff would be saying to me, they say, I need to leave a bit early today. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And they're like, it's okay. They're like, we'll get everything done beforehand. And say they had to leave 2-3 hours before. They got all that work done in that time. If not, they would have just done the same amount of work until 5-6 o'clock. So yeah, it's interesting times.
Yeah, I think just that, like what you're talking about, that ability to be productive then leads to better opportunities. I don't want to say bigger opportunities because sometimes it's bigger is not better. It's better is the ones that feed your creativity, feed, the different things that you want to do, which I think it's brilliant. And I think it's a mindset that it's picking up steam. I think people are figuring that out, but like you said, we're all conditioned to believe that busy's better and that working long hours is better and the grind, embrace the grind. I think the grind is a necessary evil, but yeah, you don't want to grind forever. You want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's the whole point. So no, I think that's brilliant. So talk to me a little bit about Raw and good work for nice people. I think that mantra is super cool. And I think I'd like to know a little bit more about where that came from. How did you start that process? And what does that look like for you today?
In terms of us developing our ethos, I kind of touched on it briefly before. We going for 15 years and it takes you a few years, particularly I was 26 when we set up the company. I was still getting to know myself. And I think as you grow, and I was entering into my 30s, you start to get a better understanding of who you are. And then that naturally reflects upon the company. Fortunately, because it was my company, it meant that I was able to introduce the changes. Maybe sometimes if you have the shifts and changes in your own life and you're working for someone else, you can't implement those own changes. We're in that position for me going, you know, and it just naturally become, we had a few opportunities to work with some big clients. I was making some changes in my own life, becoming a bit more conscious of how I lived, how I shopped, everything, kind of how I ate. And we had an opportunity, Kellogg's actually got in touch with us and had a brief that he wanted us to work on. I went over to meet them, spoke with them. Basically, their whole aim was to encourage more children to eat their food. And to be honest, I thought, well, I wouldn't eat their food, eat Kellogg's breakfast personally. At the time, I didn't have kids. And I thought, well, if we got kids, I'm also not going to be feeding them Kellogg's, mainly just because looking at the sugar content, linked to obesity, all that stuff. So I made the decision that we wouldn't go for that job. A few people in the studio are like, crazy, what? This is Kellogg's. This is an amazing brand. I'm like, listen, you know, it just doesn't feel right. We've had other companies that have got in touch and it just didn't feel right. And you know what? It feels so empowering to say no to a client. Often from our perspective, we're saying, yes, yeah, we'll do whatever you want. Yeah. And you feel like you hand over your power, but to take that back and to say, you know, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I wasn't brutally honest with them. I just said, thank you very much for the opportunity, but it's just not something that we're interested in right now. And it feels really good to do that. And actually, the byproduct of that is all of a sudden, other opportunities became available to us, more interesting opportunities. We ended up working with some charities. We worked with some, at the time, it was like a vegetarian society and other things that we felt a little bit more aligned with. And it was during that process that we worked out who we are. And that motto, do good work for nice people. Like it says, do good work. You know, if we can do good design work, brilliant. But we can also do it for people that are either not having a negative impact on the planet, but are also nice people themselves. I think everyone knows, whether you work with designers, work with clients, you know, just you have some great clients and sometimes you have some shocking clients, some really demanding clients. They want everything from you. They're expecting you to reply from an email after 5 minutes and are really impatient. So we were able to kind of weed out some of those clients. But like I said, we had to do it by streamlining our business because it wasn't really possible. But yeah, the motto came from us, our own awareness. It took a few years because basically what we would do is I would sit down with the team and go, right, okay, I'd start to run some workshops with them. Because sometimes you can be so busy working, that word term busy, just busy with client work, shuddering along, that it's really important as an owner of a business or an entrepreneur to have more time where you're on the business rather than in the business. So I was able to have a lot of time to just be on the business. I'd dedicate more time each day, each week, each month for me to really thinking about the strategy of the company, the direction that we wanted to go in. So I would run workshops with the team because I didn't want to just say to them, impose my will on them. I've tended to want to say, I want them to come along on this ride. I want to give them ownership and empower them to feel like they're making an impact on the company. They're not just working for me, they're working with me, and we're a team. So to enable them and to empower them to contribute and to come up with ideas. Like I know, you know, from a lot of research, you know, enable staff members to contribute. You're going to make them happier. You're going to make them stay with you longer. We had people that stayed with us for 6, 7, 8 years, you know, and in our industry, on average, it's about 2 years that someone will stay in an agency, maybe even less, you know, 18 months, 2 years. So for us to have people staying with us for 6, 7 years felt like, you know, they were with us when we were growing and we were doing exciting stuff. Like I would always have a big emphasis on self-initiated work. It's one of the things where we kind of got a lot more of our recognition within the industry. We would do self-initiated projects in the lead up to Christmas, just other things, just for fun, because we all know that there's certain times with certain client briefs, you might present a great idea and they don't go for it. And you're like, oh, but when you've got do your own self-initiated stuff, if you've got your own ideas, there's nothing really holding you back from doing it unless there's a big budget that's required. But if we've got some time to invest in it. So because I would allow our staff to do stuff like that and work on it, it made them really happy because they could get to choose them. They could spend their days working on stuff, which they would normally do in the evening times or weekends. So coming back to the point of how we developed all that, that was basically it. We did it. We had the team, you know, I think we were around about a team of 7 or 8 back when we started to develop our values. And we also work with some consultants. I bring on some, consultants to help us to run some of those workshops, because sometimes the staff members will listen to other people more than they might listen to me. So yeah, it took a while. I think like it takes a while to get to know who you are as a company and as an individual. And it's a journey really. And thankfully we realised that. And I'm grateful that I realised that in our early 30s, when I feel maybe some people, it might be a much longer process.
Yeah. No, one of the things you mentioned there, I think is not only true internally, but appreciation and freedom to do is like probably some of the best currency there is when it comes to getting the team on board or getting them to, buy into your vision, but also even from a client perspective. Like I have clients, and I'm sure you do too, that you'll get so much further with me and you'll actually get bigger bang for your buck. You'll get free work. Like if you appreciate and you kind of embrace and we're collaborating, I'll inherently give way more than I will for somebody who's maybe, pounded on me unrealistically, or, they're just trying to they're trying to negotiate the extra effort out of me versus collaborating with me. And I think that appreciation, just gets you so much further. So this idea of good work for nice people and surrounding yourself with the people that you want to work for and you want to work with and you want to collaborate with, it's kind of it's an ecosystem of creativity that, everybody wins. And I think it is a challenge, and it's an alternative way of thinking as compared to the traditional agency model. But if you can continue to work at it and learn who you are as a company and who you are as individuals, that ecosystem can be built. And when you build it, I think a lot of great things can happen.
Yeah. Like there's some companies that I really admire, like say Patagonia or other companies, and their setup and their model. And obviously they become huge. So you can have really strong values and still grow however you wish. We just chose to kind of grow smaller again. But yeah, other companies might adopt a 4-day work week model or other elements. It's just, yeah, it does create a good ecosystem. And it's, and the thing is, that just feeds into you just having, it brings more happiness and more meaning and more purpose to what you're doing. That's why I said, I felt like we had people that would stay with us for many years, because it felt like they were contributing and they were making a difference in some way. And yeah, it's really, it's good to talk about this actually, because sometimes you don't actually reflect on it as much. Sometimes people ask me, I do some other stuff, but it's nice to get these questions and to be able to reflect back, because I don't think many of us give ourselves enough credit for how far we've come in life, no matter what we've done. I think there was like a quote from somewhere, like, it was something like, remember when you dreamed about what you've got now, and we're always striving for the next thing or the thing in the future that's going to make us, when we get there, the next project, the next thing, where, it's realizing that the journey is the destination and we have to enjoy what we're doing now and to strive for something. It's a little bit like tying into that. I think it ties into what we're talking about. The idea of, when I retire, when I'm 65, I'll be happy and I'll have this money and this free time. Well, I want to engineer my life so I've got the free time now, because I'm never going to be healthier than I am now. And I'm never, it's that illusion of in the future, I'm going to be when I have this. And I think we kid ourselves and then when you'll probably get to that age, you'll be frustrated that you kind of wished or willed our life away without maybe really enjoying what we're doing. And if I'm honest, it takes bravery. It takes bravery to make some significant changes in your life. And I feel like we've made some significant changes and some risks. I remember when we made the shift, I let go of all. It was one of the toughest things we had to do. I went in, sat with our staff, and we told them, listen, I'm sorry, but in 2 months' time, there's not going to be a job for you anymore. We're not going to have the studio. We're making a change, making a significant change. And it was really tough for us to do that. And I had family members saying to me, what's wrong? Is the company collapsing or are you in really trouble? And I'm like, no, it feels like the opposite. It's the opposite to that. I'm finally realizing I'm finally doing something that feels right for me, not what feels right for society or feels right for my parents or what feels right for them. And it felt really freeing to be able to that position to go, you know what? Yeah, we're just going to make this change. And I look back, that was 5-6 years ago. I don't regret it one bit. I'm happier now. Like I said, I've got more free time. I can work how I want and when I choose. And I'm a lucky man. I was thinking that to myself on Monday or whenever it was, maybe even last week. I was just out and I was just like, I'm a lucky man. I am a lucky man. So yeah.
It's so interesting though, because that is the perception. You know, you get in that hamster wheel and you do kind of what you believe is the right thing, whether it's building a corporate career or starting a company, whatever it is. You're kind of playing out that version of what people think is the right path. And, oh my God, he's doing so well and he's building this business, and you're just feeding the perception. And then when you realize you're living inside of the illusion, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I did build this and it is fun, but it's not fulfilling, and it's really expensive, and it took me away from the stuff I really like. And you start to break it down, it just completely makes sense that the next step in that evolution is to lose that expectation and to lose that false perception and actually be what you want to be and what you can be, because that's inside of that illusion. That's what you're doing anyway. You're just not embracing it. You're fighting it. You're rejecting it. And to lose the perception and the illusion and just be who you are, it's an evolution. It's actually a promotion, if you want to look at it. It's not that the company's collapsing. I'm promoting myself. I'm actually putting myself first, which is, makes sense. It's genius. And I think most people would embrace that idea, but they're stuck with the perception. They're like, well, I don't understand why you would stop doing that. And it's like, well, because this next step in the evolution's for me. It's for my family. It's for my wife, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I remember thinking, like, we could have continued the way we were working with all the team, and I could have kept them all in employment and kept the studio going. But I remember thinking, well, if I do this in 5 years' time, I'm still going to be in the same place. I'm still doing it, and I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for them. And you could say there's some honor in doing it for someone else, but on the other side, we have to do things that make us happy, that are going to be fulfilling for us. And it turned out that all those people that worked for us were highly talented. They all moved into new positions, no problem. Some of them have got really successful freelance careers now. So I think sometimes the fear of it, I think there's too often we let the fear overtake us at times. And like I say, sometimes you've got to take the road less traveled. And kind of, I think of us, because we're designers in the design industry, we've got an opportunity to design our own life. And why not rip up the rule book and, dream big and be inspired by other people and work in a different way, and to actually design your own life rather than feel like it's already been designed for you. And that's, it's something that I still hold true now, and I'm still designing my life and I'm still making changes. And I think the key thing as well is to always be flexible and open to changing your ideas as well. Even now, we've got new things that we want to do. We want to go in different direction with stuff and do other things with our life. It's just being open to change and being flexible, because I think holding on and being rigid is the thing that just causes us so much stress and so much anxiety as well. But if we can just be more open to moving in different directions, then life can be fun.
Yeah, I think it can be fun, and I think it can be whatever you want it to be, from a creative, personal hobby, personal passion type perspective. I think one of the things you mentioned, and we don't have to go too far down that road, but you talked about doing the internal, like the kind of the self-serving projects as a company. I've never really heard it. I'll have to listen back to this podcast to hear how you said it, but I've never heard it explained the way you explained it. But I love that. And that's something that I've always done, even with my own company, where when we have time or budget or wages, we just feel like we need kind of an inspirational kick in the butt. We do something internal that's just fun. And I think the perception from the traditional mindset or the traditional agency kind of structure would be, well, that's wasting budget, or why would you spend that time on that when you could be spending it on another client? And it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes we got to do stuff for ourselves, and we have to do stuff that just for no other reason just makes us a little happy. And as a byproduct of that, now over the 5-6 years we've been doing this, we've got some pretty unique stuff. We've got some pretty cool swag. We've got some pretty cool logos that we use on apparel. I mean, we've just got some random things that we've, kind of created for ourselves to just kind of keep the juices flowing, that have now built a better brand for CyberDogs, and it has built a better resume of work for people that say, well, wow, that's really creative. How'd you come up with that? And it's, to your point, it's just one of those things. We just did it. We had time. We did it. We just did it internally. We did it for ourselves for no other reason, to just kind of have fun.
And one thing on top of that as well is those self-initiated projects led to some pretty exciting creative briefs as well, live briefs. They'd seen that and thought, oh, that's really good. It's interesting. And even another thing, like we've been developing our own products for a few years, and my wife's a writer, so she wrote her own children's book. We worked with an amazing illustrator in America, Andy J. Miller. And now when our clients, like sometimes like our clients might have kids or babies, and then we'll send them that book, and they, they see that entrepreneurial spirit in you, and they admire you for doing those projects, and they see the creativity in it, that they go, oh, right, it leads to new stuff as well. It leads to paid client work as well.
I think it helps illustrate the depth of what's, behind some of these, because so many times you showcase what the client work is, or you showcase the most recent stuff that you've done as a company, but there's always more depth beyond that. There's always somebody on the team who's a great writer or a great illustrator or a great, cartoonist or whatever that is. And if you don't force those things to the surface, nobody knows it's there. So the depth of people and talents and creativity, like to your point, showcase it, do stuff with it, is because it's going to broaden their understanding about how talented your team is.
And it's taking those new things that you learn, which then feeds into your, them client projects as well. Not just does it inspire them to want to work with you, but you apply new skills. Like I remember, there's often one thing that's always been to our credit is we've never been afraid to just do something different and new. Like, okay, animated videos are very popular, but we'd never done one like 10 years ago. And then we decided, well, we're just going to do one with a client. And we just suggested it was the right thing for the brief, and we just made it up as we go along. Like that's a key thing for me. Students often ask me, like, why did you set up Raw? And I just said intuitively once, it just came out of me, just to have fun and make it up as you go along. None of us know how to do anything unless we do it. Like we can read all the books, we can watch all the YouTube videos about it or whatever, but we have to just do it. And that's how you just learn from the process of doing something. So whether I've been fortunate to work with maybe 200 different artists and illustrators and photographers during our time. And it's because we've just been brave enough to say, you know what, this is the solution that we should go down instead. Let's bring these people in. Let's do this. And let's just, have fun and make it up as you go along. And I want to adopt that motto basically for the rest of my life in anything that I do.
Yeah. Because the idea behind that is, even if it's not like your skills are going to improve and perhaps you're going to get better at a certain skill or a certain project if you do it over and over again, but you're never going to get to the A level work without doing the D and the C and the B first. So you have to just, put your chips on the table and try it to kind of just see what happens, like see what you're capable of and build on it from there. And the nice part about what we do is you have people around you typically that add layers to it. Once you show them, here's my concept, what do you think? Then you start to get them, what if this and change this? And oh my God, now we're going to take it from here to here. And through that process of kind of collecting feedback and getting, other people's opinions on it, you're going to get to this place where all of a sudden it doesn't seem like an odd thing anymore. And now it seems like a skill. It seems like it was intentional, and it seems like it fits within your creative skill set. So I think you got to be bold, you got to be brave, and you have to try stuff.
Yeah, Rob, absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on, dude. This is a great conversation. I didn't know exactly where we were going to go with this, but this was great. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'd love to have you on again sometime if you're up to it.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I've really enjoyed it as well. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Rob. If you'd like to learn more about CyberDogs, share your thoughts, or even ask a specific question about this episode and or the brand Retro Mindset, contact me directly at mike@cyberdogsmarketing.com.